Donald Trump has two new people that are joining the campaign, the effort to get him elected. These are two former Democrats, but not a surprise that they're joining them. Who are they and why?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who endorsed Donald Trump on Friday last week, is now going to be a part of the transition team for Donald Trump. Tulsi Gabbard is also going to be a part of the transition team for Donald Trump. This is according to the Trump campaign themselves. Of course, these are both one-time Democrats who have really curried favor with the right-wing media and Donald Trump, right? Tulsi Gabbard, let's be very clear, she's spoken at CPAC before. She was on the campaign trail in 2022 with the likes of Kari Lake. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just yesterday was on X tweeting about chemtrails and saying that chemtrails should be a crime. And so this is part of, for Donald Trump, his effort to build a coalition. Now, I think a lot of folks are understanding that this is a very specific coalition that he's trying to build, and it is one that really placates the far right, because these are individuals, Tulsi Gabbard, who has, you know, at the outset of the war in Ukraine, laid blame at the feet of the United States for putting Russia in the position to defend itself by trying to expand NATO, that Russia inherently needed to do what it could to defend itself against potential Ukraine or NATO advancement. So those are the members that are officially going to be.
The last time I heard about chemtrails around Donald Trump was a protester outside of his former home, Trump Tower, wearing swirly eyeglasses with bizarre hair and ranting about chemtrails. So now someone on his transition team can do that as well. Let me ask you about RFK a little more, because we've heard about the worm that he says he found in his head. We've heard about the story about the bear that he found as roadkill and then left as a joke in Central Park, making it look like it was hit by a bicycle. At the time, there were a lot of bicycle deaths in New York City. That was his version of a joke. There's also this new story from Kik Kennedy, his daughter, that it's not new. It came out in 2011 or 2012. She was telling Town and Country about her family, and she has an anecdote about her father. I'll read it. When she was 6, she says, word got out that a dead whale had washed up on Squaw Island in Hyannisport. Bobby, who likes to study animal skulls and skeletons, ran down to the beach with a chainsaw, cut off the whale's head, and then bungee corded it to the roof of the family minivan for the 5-hour haul back to Mount Kisco, New York. She also talks about having to put a plastic bag on her head because there was whale juice dripping into the car and that passerbys were flipping the family off. And she said it was just a regular day for RFK and that family. I don't really know. What's the question there, Vaughn? I don't know how do you answer
You're
it.
asking me, other than, if we can, Katie, take the quick step back to 2016 at Trump Tower when we were covering that transition there, is he was parading folks who could potentially be part of his cabinet into Trump Tower. And one of the names that I remember caught my attention and surprise was RFK Jr. And he was coming there on the vaccination front, right? This is a complicated, unique man. And Donald Trump has, even just last week, said that he's interesting. He's a little bit different, is how Donald Trump described him himself. And he understands that this certain percentage of voters who may be RFK voters could very well help him here electorally. And this for Kamala Harris, we're 2 weeks out from this pending debate between these two individuals. And there's just a lot there at the feet of this Democratic ticket. And, you know, you were playing the sound of Donald Trump talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal. And in no way is the Biden-Harris administration unencumbered by any responsibility of what took place with the withdrawal of the troops in the passing of U.S. military servicemen and women. But when you look at the Trump administration, they were the ones in February 2020 that put the Doha Agreement into effect, releasing more than 5,000 Taliban prisoners. And for so many ways, this is where Donald Trump, right, you kind of flood the field. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Afghanistan withdrawal. This is going to be an intense debate here.